The biology of dragons, analysis and speculation. Although the existence of dragons is confined to the realm of mythology and fantasy, interest in their possible biology and anatomy has generated intriguing scientific reflections. This approach draws on comparative anatomy, paleontology, and evolutionary biology to create consistent speculation about what a dragon's anatomy might look like if it were a real organism. First of all, most representations of dragons show them with 4 legs and a pair of wings, giving them a total of 6 limbs. However, no living land vertebrate has more than 4 limbs. Thus, if dragons were real, they would either have descended from an ancestor with a higher number of limbs or develop an evolutionary mechanism to acquire an extra pair of limbs. Dragon wing anatomy is another subject of speculation. Some dragons are represented with bat-like wings, implying a complex bone structure and skin covering. Others have feathered wings, suggesting a closer relationship to birds. The ability of dragons to breathe fire is perhaps their most emblematic and biologically problematic characteristic. Some have proposed that dragons could produce a flammable chemical, similar to some bombardier beetles, but on a much larger scale. Others suggest that dragons could produce sparks by chewing on rocks rich in natural pyrotechnics. The internal anatomy of dragons is less often depicted, but there is some interesting speculation. The need for flight suggests a light skeletal system, perhaps with hollow bones like birds. In order to hunt and fight, dragons would need strong musculature, especially in their legs and jaws. The idea of dragons living for hundreds or even thousands of years also implies biological mechanisms of extreme longevity. This could lead to exceptionally efficient DNA repair, or perhaps a way to avoid or reverse the normal aging process. Overall, speculation about the anatomy of dragons is a fascinating exercise that combines science and fantasy. Of course, this is pure fantasy. Without real evidence, all we can do is guess. However, that doesn't diminish the appeal of imagining what a dragon might look like if it really existed. The ecology of dragons, habitat and behavior. Continuing our exploration into the sphere of dragon biology, translated from the fantastic universe to a scientific one, we are confronted with the idea of how these creatures could interact with their environment and what their typical behaviors would be. Ecology is the discipline that studies the interactions of organisms with their environment and, in a sense, the ecology of dragons is the most imaginative imaginable. Dragon habitats in mythologies and stories are extremely varied, reflecting their fantastical nature. They have been represented as inhabitants of barren deserts, mountain tops, sea depths, and even parallel dimensions. However, in a more realistic context, dragons, like any large predator, would need a habitat with plenty of prey and enough space to hunt and live. Dragons' behavior is often described in anthropomorphized terms, as cunning or savage, evil or noble creatures. In an ecological analysis, they would be viewed primarily in terms of behaviors necessary for survival, feeding, mating, nesting, and territory defense. Their position as hypothetical apex predators would place them at the top of the food chain, strongly influencing the surrounding ecosystem. One could also speculate about their social behavior. Some stories depict dragons as solitary, while others depict them as living in large groups or families. Both scenarios present ecological challenges. Solitary creatures must defend a large territory to gain access to sufficient resources, while social creatures must manage relationships within the group and divide resources among several individuals. Similarly, the reproductive behavior of dragons is another fascinating topic. The classic depiction of the dragon guarding a nest of golden eggs is an evocative reminder, but the biology of dragon reproduction remains a fascinating mystery, inviting further speculation and storytelling. As fascinating as the ecology of dragons is, we must remember that all of this is pure speculation. Without a living, or extinct, specimen to study, we can't make any definitive statements. However, the allure of dragons lies in this combination of mystery and possibility. Inevitably, all these considerations lead us to reflect on the possible evolution of these mythical creatures. It is a path that we will explore in the next paragraph, dedicated to theories and hypotheses on the evolution of dragons. The evolution of dragons, theories and hypotheses. Diving into the world of scientific speculation, let's consider how these mythical creatures might have emerged through the process of evolution. The idea of an evolutionary dragon invites us to blur the lines between reality and fantasy, using science as a tool to illuminate the darkness of the fantasy realm. In their most basic form, dragons are described as giant reptiles, often with the ability to fly or breathe fire. Looking at the history of life on Earth, it's easy to see parallels with dinosaurs, the giant reptiles of the past. One could hypothesize that dragons could be dinosaurs that avoided extinction by developing the ability to fly like birds. Another interesting theory is convergent evolution, where similar traits evolve independently in different species. For example, the ability to fly evolved independently in birds, bats, and insects. In an alternate world, reptiles may have evolved wings to fly, giving rise to dragon-like creatures. In regards to the ability to breathe fire, some real animals produce chemicals that can cause fire-like reactions. The beetle bomber, for example, mixes two chemicals in its body to create a hot spray. Could it be possible for an animal to develop a similar mechanism to produce fire? As we explore these hypotheses, it is important to remember that evolution is not driven by a plan or goal. It is a blind process driven by environmental pressures and genetic chances. Any hypothetical evolutionary dragon should be the result of these processes, not a plan or desire to become a dragon. But a fascinating question remains: how could a biological organism produce and resist fire? A mystery that we will explore in the next paragraph, dedicated to the biology of heartburn in dragons. Through the lens of science, we will continue to explore the line between reality and myth, between what we know and what we can only imagine. 7.4 Dragons and Fire, the biology of heartburn. The evocative power of the image of a fire-breathing dragon is undeniable. But how could a biological organism produce and survive a jet of flame? Here's where speculative biology becomes particularly fascinating. In order to produce fire, a dragon would need to generate a mixture of highly reactive chemicals and release them in a controlled manner. This process should take place in a part of the body resistant to heat and flames, to protect the dragon itself. On Earth, there are already creatures that produce intense chemical reactions. The bombardier beetle is one of them. It generates a jet of boiling liquid to defend itself from predators. The liquid is the result of a chemical reaction that occurs when two separate substances in the insect's body mix. It is conceivable that a larger organism could develop a more powerful version of this ability, creating a jet of flame rather than a jet of boiling liquid. But breathing fire wouldn't be without its risks. Even if a dragon were able to produce a chemical reaction that creates flames, it should be able to control it. Otherwise, it could end up igniting itself. Therefore, dragons would need some kind of safety mechanism or protective barrier. They may have some sort of flame-retardant coating in their mouth and throat, similar to asbestos. Or perhaps they could produce some kind of mucus or saliva that reacts with flames to create some kind of fire-retardant foam. These are just speculations, of course, but they serve to demonstrate how speculative biology can be a useful thinking tool for exploring the limits of the possible. And speaking of limitations, another central theme in dragon iconography is its legendary longevity. How can dragons live so long, often hundreds or even thousands of years according to myths and legends? We explore this mystery in the next section, dedicated to dragon longevity factors. The longevity of dragons, factors of longevity. In mythic and fantasy narratives, dragons are often depicted as creatures of extreme longevity, in many cases centuries or even millennia old. From a biological point of view, this raises a number of interesting questions. How would an organism achieve such longevity? And what adaptations could support such a long life? To examine these matters, reference can be made to terrestrial organisms that have exceptional longevity. For example, some sea turtle and lobster species do not seem to age conventionally, and some types of trees, such as giant sequoia and bristlecone pine, can live for thousands of years. The cells of these organisms have exceptionally effective DNA repair mechanisms, and their tissues are resistant to the wear and tear that accumulates over time. For a dragon, the ability to effectively repair DNA damage could be crucial. Additionally, they may have exceptionally slow metabolisms, which would slow down the aging process. Another possibility could be an advanced form of hibernation or stasis, during which the dragon enters a state of deep rest that slows or stops its aging. Another element that could contribute to dragons' longevity is their diet. A balanced diet, rich in essential nutrients, could help keep dragons healthy and long-lived. Similarly, a specific diet could contribute to their ability to regenerate tissue, repair DNA damage, or maintain general good health. Exactly what kind of diet could sustain the dragon's longevity? This question leads us to our next topic, dragon feeding. We explore this theme in the following paragraph, where we delve into the mystery of what dragons might eat, and how their diet might contribute to their unique biology. The diet of dragons: predators, omnivores, or herbivores. In analyzing the possible dietary habits of draconic creatures, a wide variety of factors must be taken into consideration. A dragon's size, habitat, physical capabilities, and behavior would certainly have a significant impact on its diet. Classic examples of mythical creatures often portray dragons as ferocious predators, feeding on large animals such as cattle or even humans. This pattern of feeding behavior implies a morphology suited to hunting and killing prey: sharp claws, powerful teeth, and perhaps even the ability to breathe fire as a means of attack. However, not all dragons are portrayed as carnivores. Some traditions describe more peaceful dragons as feeding on plants, fruit, or fish, suggesting a behavior more similar to that of omnivores or herbivores. A dragon that feeds this way might look different, with less pronounced teeth and claws, and a digestive tract that can handle a more varied or plant-based diet. The environment would also play an important role. A dragon living in an aquatic environment, for example, might feed on fish or shellfish, while a desert dragon might depend on a diet of small mammals and insects. Similarly, a forest dragon might consume a combination of flesh and vegetation, using its strength and agility to capture prey and gather fruit from trees. Either way, a dragon's diet would have a significant impact on its biology and physiology. The assimilation of nutrients, the energy required for hunting or gathering food, and the interaction with other organisms in the dragon's habitat would all be affected by its dietary habits. We now move on to the next topic, where we will venture into the fascinating world of dragon classification, exploring the different species and types that could exist in a universe where these mythical beings are real. Dragon species, classifications, and types. In the fictional universe of dragon biology, it is challenging to consider the possible variety of draconic species. Based on the legends and myths of many cultures, one could imagine different types of dragons, each with its own unique characteristics and living habits. One way to classify them could be based on morphology or physical appearance. There could be dragons with wings, 4 legs, 2 legs, or no wings. Some might have horns, crests, or fringes, while others might have scales of different shapes and colors. Some might be gigantic, some might be as small as a bird. Another possible classification could be based on habitat. There might be mountain dragons, forest dragons, desert dragons, and cave dragons, just to name a few. Each species would be adapted to its specific environment, with abilities and physical characteristics that allow it to survive and thrive. A third classification system could relate to behavior. Are there aggressive and territorial dragons? Social dragons that live in groups? Migratory dragons that move seasonally from place to place? Nocturnal dragons that hunt in the dark? The answers to these questions depend on the stories and legends we choose to explore. An important point to consider is that, just as in real species classification, there may be overlaps and exceptions to these categories. A dragon might belong to more than one species, or might not fit easily into any one category. This is one of the fascinating challenges of trying to organize mythical creatures into a scientific classification system. Now, having explored the possibilities of dragon classification, let's move on to examining one particular species that has fascinated mankind for centuries, the sea dragon. These aquatic denizens of legend and myth present a unique set of challenges and opportunities within the context of the fictional biology of dragons. We will discuss their biology and ecology, exploring how they might live and interact with their environment beneath the ocean's surface. Guys, we've come to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it and it offered you new food for thought. If you want to support our channel and not miss the next content, click on the like button, subscribe, and if you have any questions or curiosities, leave a comment below. Your participation is the fuel that fuels our passion. Until next time, and thank you very much for being with us.